the end of the world. It came out faster than you could blink. I guess it's the end of time. Hey, what do you think? Everybody's talking in riddles, nobody talking in rhyme. Everybody talking in downright lies. And when you lose sight of the truth, that's when you gotta run. When you lose sight of the truth, you know the trouble's gonna come. How we gonna stop that? What do you say? Gonna look up in the heaven, find a brand new day. Everybody talking in circles, no one talking in line. I guess it's the end of the world. Came out much quicker than you could blink. I guess it's the end. Hey, what do you think? I wish I had a time machine. I'd go back a few years, tell everyone I love them so. Wish I had a time machine, go back a few years, I'd take out an insurance policy with the archangels. I'd stop dealing with the devil and all his lies. I'd go back to when you could still have a nice surprise. Everybody's talking now in riddles, and nobody is talking in rhyme. I guess it's the end of the world. Not much time left to speak. I guess it's the end of the world, unless we stop it down on the beach. let the waves crash. Teach me a thing or two. You're gonna teach us what we gotta do. Go off the 9 waves and let them roll. Any man of far. Hey, I've seen all these tricks before. Get up the mast, boy. Go your 9 ways. You soon make it. Soon make it to the shore. You soon make it through the mist and the lights. You soon make it through the fog and the rain, and you hit the shore. I went to talk to my asked him to teach me just a trick or two to save the people. You know what he said to me? He said, you gotta speak the truth. Gotta sing the truth. You gotta love. Gotta love the truth. So greetings, hello, it's Thomas, it's Sunday, 4th of October, St. Francis's Day, patron saint of all seekers of truth and love and light, who was, actually had a French mother, St. Francis, from Provence, down in the south of France, not far from me. So, yeah, let's honour St. Francis today, a lover of truth, as I was invoking in my song, The End of the World Blues. And yeah, I wish everybody a happy St. Francis Day. And I'm going to keep this short and sweet for once. My days of long talks, I think, you know, I've given my good innings over the last year or so of fasting every Sunday. I'm going to keep it up, but sometimes less is more. Like everyone else on the planet, you know, we're in this lockdown. We don't know whether it's genuine. We don't know if it's absolutely vital that we all stay indoors. A number of people are all shouting, you know, we should challenge the pandemic, as they call it, a plandemic. People gathering in, I believe in Trafalgar Square in London. A group of doctors are saying this. You know, I suspend judgment. My job as a philosopher and poet and druid and bard is to go for truth. I await the definite, conclusive evidence that this virus is or is not highly lethal. I don't start from a sort of Manichaean place of distrust. I think what we have to do is not allow the media, the social media of any party to sort of create this hysteria of us against them, you know, and we should actually do some real science, suspend judgment. I've called, as you probably know, if you followed my talks, for the United Nations to investigate the etiology of this virus through invoking the Bioweapons Convention. And that way we can rule out whether or not this was a man-made escape from a laboratory, as is possible. We should do all the science we can. And the fact that Bioweapons Convention hasn't been invoked, I find strange. And certainly if I had the authority to, I would have invoked it in the first week, because we need to rule out whether this was a man-made virus or not. And I've heard from both sides, but scientists on both sides seem to be saying, yes, it's man-made, no, it isn't. And then of course the Chinese virologist says, yes, it's man-made, and then of course she's attacked and pilloried on fact-checking type things. And so there's this internet war going on between different camps. The fact that Chinese woman is associated with a group that seemed to have links to Steve Bannon, it makes me suspicious too, because we all know that Steve Bannon wants to create wars against China. He wants America to sort of go to war with China so that it can big up his whole ideology and agenda, which is militarism, militarism, and militarism. And the way to get that is chaos. And the moves he's made are white supremacy, America first, Trump, So that's why I'm suspicious of that whole coterie. But, one has to be scientific and look at all the evidence. The fact that Bannon is now in jail for criminal wrongdoing, I think, is indicative of the kind of criminality that the man is imbued with, which is, of course, underlying Brexit. That was another step in the game plan. So, if we're going to connect up the COVID-19 crisis, I think there's a line that can be drawn between Brexit and where we are now. How do I mean that? Do I mean the same people are at work? No, not necessarily. I suspend judgment. What I think the line that can be drawn is that of lying by people in power, in the elite, well, not even elite, in political parties, in governance, both in the UK and in the US. I think they've been leading us on a trail of mendacity since at least 9/11, and of course, long before that, governments lie. They've been doing it since the Italian Renaissance and long before, but I think the audacity of the lying escalated to a new crescendo on 9/11, which is why I've set up an International Historical Commission of Inquiry into it, involving mainstream historians. We're going to get to the bottom of this if it takes, however long it takes. History is the science of sifting truth and fact from superstition and hypothesis and so on. So I've written a 2-volume book about that, in which I go into the philosophy of history. How is history done? What are the tools you need? And that's why I trained as a historian at the University of London. It's a professionally robust work that we need to establish the truth even about 9/11. And because that's never been established, so we have a sort of the mainstreaming of dissimulation and mendacity that has occupied the media ever since, really, in the West, in Britain, the BBC, the Blair years, when it was spin, and that's when I think the British people realised that our political leaders have no morality. They simply lied to us over the 2003 involvement in the American war against Iraq. Iraq was a wonderful, it was a bastion of sort of moderate Islam in a sea of extremism. And obviously I know Saddam Hussein was himself not a particularly pleasant man, and his rule had been accompanied by much that needed reform and so on. But you don't reform somebody with a headache by attacking them with a mallet and smashing their head in, which is what the Allied invasion did. And Britain had a special moral duty in Iraq because it's a country that we helped found, and many of our academics, intellectuals, artists used to go to Iraq and help them found the university in Baghdad. Great British people like Agatha Christie were there. We were very interested in the archaeology of the area. It's the oldest civilized part of the world, arguably, in the technical sense of civilized as in urban. So, yeah, that 2003 invasion was again accompanied by media lies, and never has veracity or truth been applied, And then we come to, subsequent events. I mean, I won't go into it all, but Syria, it's a tragedy of, and to me, the beginning of it all is this mendacity, which is why my song focused on truth. So when we come to COVID, we are swimming in a sea of lies. Nobody knows who to trust anymore. So the mass movement by people to disbelieve in authorities, disbelieve in the medical authorities, disbelieve in the governments, and to say it's all a conspiracy and so on. That's where that comes from. Now, I'm not saying whether they're right or wrong. I'm just saying they're right in that their lack of trust in authorities to tell the truth is well grounded. And I say that with great sorrow. Of course, we should live in a society where our Prime Minister, our rulers, our Queen, our whatever, our President, tells the truth. And we should just take that for granted. We no longer do. In 2006, I think it was, I proposed for the first time that anybody's ever proposed on this planet a new bill in Parliament in the UK that all politicians should have to tell the truth by law about all matters affecting their work, their job, their role, not sort of private stuff, but their did they go on this trip? Was that funded by that lobby group? Did they meet this person in Switzerland? Blah blah. That stuff they should tell the truth on. And if they don't, if they're found to lie, they should immediately lose office. Whether you're an MP or a Lord, I don't care. You would immediately lose office and be sent to the back of the class. I'm a teacher. If somebody lies in the class, it's a real test of character. Some kids lie, and some kids don't, and some know the difference. And that's called basic ethics. And that's why I've written a book, just recently published this last week, about an ethical calculus, a system of making complex ethical choices. It's available, you can buy it. It's a very simple manual, it's 200 pages. And it would be very helpful. Be very helpful if all our political leaders could read that book. And our religious leaders and our scientists as well. My concern about science is that it's lost its sense of ethics. The thought that some scientists might be making biological weapons, as they undoubtedly are, fills me with horror. They're misusing their intellect because they've divorced their science from ethical considerations. And that's the beginning of the slippery slope. We now have politicians who do the same. They've divorced their career in politics, which is supposed to be one of ministry to the people, service in a democracy, to one of naked ambition and self-serving, self-advancement. And parties have become vehicles for that. Tory party, Republican party, I think, have become naked career ambition, vehicles, which is shocking to me. I organised 30 meetings in the UK Parliament back in the 90s and 2000s, and it was a whole different climate. You know, you expected politicians to tell the truth. If they were caught doing something wrong, they resigned. And we're now entering a post-truth world, as it's called. Well, I'm saying, that's why I say in my song, you know, a lyric, if I had a time machine, I'd go back in time and reset that button. So anyway, here I am, a philosopher and a bard and a poet, and, you know, working for truth on all fronts. Since we last spoke, I organised the World Intellectual Forum, which gathered online. We had a great meeting of scholars and academics and philosophers from Moscow and Delhi and India and Hyderabad and Bhopal and America and, you know, Europe. And we had, amongst many other people, we had an Armenian on from near Yerevan. And of course, since we last spoke, a war's breaking out between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and people are getting involved in it. People are egging them on. I mean, we as the World Intellectual Forum have issued a declaration, a statement that we would like to mediate, see intellectuals from all sides come together, be they Azerbaijanis or Armenians, and reason this out. I still believe, we still believe as the World Intellectual Forum, in a rational order behind the universe. And it is possible for us to tune into that. You know, I don't believe God wants chaos, mayhem, lies, the destruction of things. God is the creator, not the destroyer. And I know, yes, okay, in Hinduism, God is also Shiva, the destroyer, but, you know, that comes later. I think there's a lot in this world to still maintain, and so we should be working more with the Vishnu energy of maintaining and the Brahma energy of creating, rather than the Shivite energy of destroying. Much as I love Shiva, I'm not anti-Shiva. He's one of the awesome gods. I mean, he's here in the presence of fire. But, you know, I think he's done enough damage. We've had World War II, we had mass killings, we had the Holocaust, we've had 9/11. You know, Shiva's had his game plan. I hope he's not taking down this entire planet, because that's very naughty. And as a druid of peace, you know, we have to put Shiva energy and Kali back in the bottle, so to speak, because it's running amok. And that's where Vishnu comes in, the more life-sustaining. And that's why Hindus often say that Christ was the incarnation of Vishnu. He was the love principle, the energy that sustains and loves. About rationality, I also want to say that to me, Christ's incarnation of the Logos is a symbol of rationality. It is today, after all, St. Francis's Day. I've been to Assisi, I've sat there in meditation, and, you know, Christians believe that reason, cosmic reason, which is the Logos, wishes for us humans to live rationally and well, and with fellowship, brotherhood and love. That was the whole point of the Franciscan order. I should confess I very nearly became a Franciscan in my youth, in my mid-20s. I used to go to the Anglican Franciscan monastery in West London near Paddington. I don't know if it's still going. And I was thinking seriously about becoming a Franciscan monk, you know. I was attracted by the idea of devoting one's life to scholarship and to God, to the search for God. I was inspired by many early Franciscan saints and sages like St. Bonaventura and Raymond Lull and Duns Scotus, and you know, there'd been a whole load of very, very highly intelligent Franciscans, and I just thought it'd be nice to be one of the guys in that train carrying a quill pen, you know. But the gods had other plans. At the very same time I was thinking of joining a monastery, I met a woman who became my partner. We had 2 beautiful daughters, and I took the academic route instead, and did my degrees at the University of London and became a teacher. But, you know, but someone that's always looking for the ultimate truth, as in what St. Francis was trying to do. And the point I'm saying is that I believe, as St. Francis did and as Bonaventura did and Raymond Lull, and Duns Scotus, that ultimate truth is rational, is logical. We can find it. It's not malevolent. The world is not evil. The world is not out to get us. The world is not full of crooks and evil people. The devil has not yet taken over this planet, although, he'd love to. No, the love still rules this planet. Vishnu is still in charge. Christ still is in charge. And Isaac Lurie and the great Kabbalistic saints, they also are on that ray of love, as Alice Bailey would have called it. And we need to work together to redeem and save this planet from its self-destruction, because Brexit, 9/11, all these things are ultimately acts of self-destruction. And that's to do with ego knowing it has to change and yet not knowing how to. It doesn't have the next moves on how to dissolve and return back to the God heart energy. So ego in its self-destructive energy then organises a world conflagration, or organises a 9/11 or a COVID event. What we as sages have to do, and this is what the World Intellectual Forum is trying to do, it's what another group I'm involved with called the Council of Wisdom, the Wisdom Council. What we're trying to do is to bring enough wisdom to bear so that the frightened, angry, violent egos of the planet can get the message and self-enlighten, which is the alternative to self-destruction. I mean, enlightenment is what happens after the ego self-destroys. It gets its enlightenment, but it can't stay angry ego owning. You can't own enlightenment. You can't control it. That's the mistake made by the black magician, who thinks they can pick up cities and become a great, magician and blah blah, without realizing that you can't, you can't get the grace to work wonders, thavma, without dissolving the ego into the loving embrace of the divine, into God. Which is what the Sufi knows. This is why in the Quran it's quite strict. You don't do black magic. You do surrender to the absolute, and that's the point we've reached on this planet. We have to do that surrender thing, which is when ego says to itself, "Okay, I'm sorry, I give up." And it dissolves into the loving embrace of the absolute, which is God, or the goddess. This knowledge was known in the mysteries. We've also had, since I last spoke, the wonderful annual anniversary of the mysteries of Eleusis outside of Athens. I've been there. I did my own little ritual performance of them in the 80s even, 1980s. And I love Eleusis. It's still got an incredible magic energy. I stayed the night there. And it's where all the intellectuals of Athens used to go on their journey for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Some of the greatest thinkers like Plato and Herodotus and Aeschylus and the whole list of them all went and did their ritual obeisance at the mysteries. And we don't know what happened. It was a long procession. There were torches. They had some time going to the sea to cleanse. It was a purification thing. And then they went to the Telesterion, which was the great, like a basilica, a great hall, like a temple. And in the basement, I think, they experienced this nighttime mystery ritual, which was a sort of dramaturgical performance of the theatre of the absolute, we could call it. And all we know is there were things spoken, legomena, things shown or seen, and there were things done during this performance. And they also were given a psychedelic drink, like a kind of LSD experience or ayahuasca or whatever, which was carefully crafted by the priests and priestesses to bring on the right dose of their awesome encounter with the living noumen, which is what psychedelics do, and people that study that, we don't know how they work. People that have studied neurobiology and so on, and ayahuasca, they do work. They bring about an encounter, but you only need to do them once in a lifetime. That was the Athenian way. I think that's about right. You know, once you've had the encounter with the living spirit, you don't need to keep doing it, you know. That's just bonkers. And so, like, it's not a party drug. This is a psychedelic, a revelator of the psyche. I personally think the mysteries of Eleusis should be brought back. I'd love to be involved in a team. In fact, there's a sort of team beginning to form of people that would love to bring those mysteries back, because mankind needs that. We need to realise that we can access the ultimate mystery. And that is the surrender of the ego. That you can't access the mystery and keep that ego. You have to surrender to what Jung called the collective transpersonal unconscious, which is the God force, the God field. So yes, bring back the mysteries. And really, if we don't, we are going to self-destruct this planet, because it's the angry egos who don't have the humility that comes from the mysteries who are destroying the planet. And you know, a lot of them run the military, they run the military dark science, they run now information warfare, covert warfare, you know, manipulation, and they speak lies and not truth. You don't speak lies once you've been to the mysteries, once your ego is dissolved into the arms of Allah or the goddess, Demeter, whatever name you want to use. You can only speak truth. It's in the wonderful bardic traditions of Scotland. True Thomas the Rhymer, he went to the other world. He was fell in love with a fairy queen. You know, that's one way of describing what happens. And he went to the other world, you know, and he was happily in fairyland for several years. And then he missed Scotland. He wanted to go back, so his queen said, "Okay, you go back, but you know, there are certain conditions." And one of the things was, when he came back, he could no longer lie. He could not tell a lie. That's why he was called True Thomas, because he'd lived with the gods and the goddess in fairyland. Once you've done that, you can't lie. Because he realised, you know, that the ontology of being requires truth. If you love and you want being to exist and you support the life process of society, civilizations, you know, cultures, families, children, once you join the Vishnu team of love, or the Christ team, then of course you can't lie, because the lie is the ontological opposite to that. It's the force of Ahriman, Druj in Zoroastrian, you know, cosmology. It's the force that is the anti-Christ, the anti-Islam, the anti-truth, you know, the anti-brigade, the anti-muse, if you want, because in the Greek philosophical system, the muse is the one that inspires the bards, the poets, to teach truth, and the philosophers, which is why Plato built a chapel for the 9 muses in the grounds of the academy. And that's why I live here in this museum of the muses, which, once we get out of this crazy coronavirus madness, I hope some of you might want to visit on pilgrimage. So there we are, that's a little update. I'm going to keep this brief because, you know, life is full of complexity and wonder. And I'm going to finish with a little poem, because, as you know, I'm also a poet.